let's get started. Cool. So on the DET, you always have read and select first, followed by fill in the blanks. It's the same is true on the mock test. So you just have to pick which words are real. This is administration. This is a real word. Impressed, that is also a real word. Compulsive, that is also a real word. Fix, that is also a real word. Rest, no, that's not a word. Identical, yep. Bubble, yep. Cap, yes. Devorate, no, not a word. Conscience, yes, tricky word. Scholarship, yes. Brass, it's a kind of metal, yes. Motif, no. Rethink, yes, that means to think about something again. Unprofessional, yes. Intriguing, yes. No, not a word. Gamble, yes. Cool. I think I got all those right. Fill in the blanks. In this online community, respect and politeness are the norm, not the exception. The inexperienced scientist irrelevantly focused on factors that were not central to the research questions. So irrelevant means not central. Irrelevantly, that is spelled correctly. Although terrified of public speaking, they gamely took the stage, determined to share their ideas with the audience. Gamely means like they were up for it. They were willing to do it. I think that's correct. Without knowing the correct terminology, quite an advanced word, means all the jargon and technical terms for a topic. Reading tech reviews can seem like deciphering a foreign language. The blank white of the snow, the stark white, it means like bright. The stark white of the snow is a sharp contrast to the warm red of the autumn leaves. Given how sudden the decision, we were surprised how casually he mentioned that he was moving to Canada. My computer has been chronically, wow. My computer has been chronically turning off expectedly for weeks, and I can't seem to find the problem. Chronically means over and over again or for a long time. The horses' names were noted above each of their stalls. That's a relatively easy word at this point. Without effective harnessing of natural resources, continuous economic growth is not feasible. Cool. Pretty sure I did very well in that section because I got most of them right and the words got very difficult by the end. So now we're going to move on to read and complete, listen and type, and read aloud.
I tried a little bit of every dish.
I tried a little bit of every dish. So with these read aloud, listen and type questions, I'd recommend that you type out your response as much as you can after the first time you hear the text, then replay it again.
I tried a little bit of every dish.
And either proofread your response or write the rest of it that you don't have yet. And then you should aim to have the full thing typed out and save your final replay to proofread your response. So here, I think I tried a little bit of every dish, but I have one more replay to make sure.
I tried a little bit of every dish.
Yep, I tried a little bit of every dish is correct, and now I can be confident in my answer. Okay, cool. Let me record. All the necessary information regarding format and structure has already been provided.
Cover the dough with plastic wrap to keep the surface from drying out.
Cover the dough with plastic wrap to, I think, prevent the surface from drying out. Let's see.
Cover the dough with plastic wrap to keep the surface from drying out.
All right. She said keep, not prevent. I'll change that. Cover the dough with plastic wrap to keep the surface from drying out. All right, I'll use my final replay to make sure.
Cover the dough with plastic wrap to keep the surface from drying out.
That's correct. All right, with these, it's important to note how I read them. I slow down and I really pronounce each word and syllable. It sounds a little unnatural, but it gets you a higher score. I've been working on my application and trying to make it as strong as possible.
Despite graduating years ago, he still has access to his university email account.
Despite graduating years ago, he still has access to his university email account. It's important to note here that I did include the comma. If you can, if it's clear where the comma should be, put a comma. All right, let's use the second replay.
Despite graduating years ago, he still has access to his university email account.
Cool. Yep, that's correct. But I'll use my final replay because you don't get more points on the DET for going faster. So use all the time you have available for each question. There's no need to rush, no reason to rush.
Despite graduating years ago, he still has access to his university email account.
Cool, that's correct. Okay, here we go. So this is like fill in the blank, but harder because there's a lot of words missing. So, wow. I don't know if I've ever seen so many words with missing letters in one of these. All right, environmental protection is the stewardship and conservation of natural resources in support of long-term ecological health. Constructive management practices are vital to maintain or enhance the economic value of these resources. Effective management is also necessary to safeguard environmental quality. So I think the main goals of environmental protection. So you can see if I don't know a word, I'll just skip it and then come back to it because it's easier if I can figure out the other words around it. So the blank main goals of environmental protection are to sustain productive ecosystems, conserve biodiversity, and protect air and water quality. Cool. All right, so let's go back. Let's see if I can get this word. The main goals, what would go here? Effective management is also necessary to safeguard environmental quality. The main goals of the yeah, I don't know the answer to this one, but I'm going to proofread my response just to make sure I don't have any typos, so maybe it'll come to me. Constructive management practices are vital to maintain or enhance the economic value of these resources. Effective management is also necessary to safeguard environmental quality. The main goals of environmental protection are to sustain productive ecosystems, conserve biodiversity, and protect air and water quality. Cool. So if you know the answer to that one, put it in a comment so that we can all know it.
Their first day at work was successful.
Their first day at work was successful.
Their first day at work was successful.
Ooh.
Their first day at work was successful.
Yep, their first day at work was successful is correct. Always take a moment, even if you're confident and you have time, to proofread. So successful, I sometimes misspell that word, so I'm going to check the spelling on that one. That is correct. Next question. Authentic learning is an approach that emphasizes the application of knowledge and skills in real-world contexts.
I felt very sorry that I had put them to so much trouble.
Very sorry that I had put them through so much trouble.
I felt very sorry that I had put them to so much trouble.
Put them through? I think he's saying I put them through, but it sounds like he's saying to. I think he's just not pronouncing his words well. He's mumbling a little bit. But let's use this final replay to really pay attention to this word here. Is it through or to?
I felt very sorry that I had put them to so much trouble.
It's still not clear, but I think it's probably through because I've never heard somebody say, I felt very sorry that I had put them to so much trouble. I'm pretty sure it's through, but he kind of is pronouncing it weird. So, a tricky question. These were built by skilled laborers who were paid in goods and supplies. All right, another reading complete. The other thing I should have said was always read the title. Make sure you note the title. That helps you to make sense of the context of the passage, which is especially valuable when there's so many blanks like this. Our company was founded in the engineering town of Pittsburgh in 1850 as a maker of lathes, the machines used to turn a workpiece around a rotational axis, and has been in business for over 150 years. Since then, we've become renowned, that means famous, as makers of precision machine tools and as pioneers in technology. While our focus is still on manufacturing machine tools, our product line has expanded to include a wider range of high-performance equipment and services for a variety of applications in recent years. Cool. So you can see how I'm able to do this very quickly because sort of what's happening is my brain is providing the answer really quickly. So my brain has a feel for what's coming next because, I mean, I'm a native speaker. I've read a lot of English. So when you're on the test, you may find if you can read kind of quickly and get into the flow of the passage, that often your brain will kind of give you the answer right away. You won't have to work hard for every single blank. So let me just proofread my response, make sure I have everything correct. Since then, we've become renowned as makers of precision machine tools and as pioneers in technology. While our focus is still on manufacturing machine tools, our product line has expanded to include a wider range of high-performance equipment and services for a variety of applications in recent years. Cool. No typos. All good to go.
The company prioritized the use of recycled materials during the manufacturing process.
The company prioritized the use of recycled materials during the manufacturing process.
The company prioritized the use of recycled materials during the manufacturing process.
Cool. All right, let's use the last replay.
The company prioritized the use of recycled materials during the manufacturing process.
Cool. And let me just proofread the response, make sure I don't have any typos. Use of recycled materials during the manufacturing process. Cool. All good. Next question. Ooh, this is a long one, so make sure you start to give yourself enough time to read the whole thing because you only have 20 seconds. Among the numerous benefits, bicycles are incredibly cost-effective and economically advantageous, both for individuals and city infrastructure.
I expected green lawns and quiet streets in the suburbs.
Green lawns and quiet streets in the suburbs.
I expected green lawns and quiet streets in the suburbs.
Cool.
I expected green lawns and quiet streets in the suburbs.
Yep. All right, let me proofread. I expected green lawns and quiet streets in the suburbs. All good. Next question. Nutrients carried by floods fertilize the soil, providing essential elements for plants to grow.
You are a school teacher, aren't you?
All right, this one's tricky because it's a question. You could have this. That is maybe more grammatically accurate. So I'm gonna go with this. I think this will be fine. You are a school teacher, aren't you?
You are a school teacher, aren't you? You are a school teacher, aren't you?
Yeah. You are a school teacher, aren't you? Cool. So with these, it's important to note that upward inflection. So with questions in English, we end on the upward inflection. So he said, you are a school teacher, aren't you? Ending up like that. That's how I know it's a question. So that's what Duolingo was really testing me on here. So make sure you use a question mark when needed. All right, another reading complete. Uninformed jury members preferred. In jury selection, lawyers are now beginning to favor individuals who are uninformed about the topic of the case. The so the blank is the I think is that individual. So the blank is that individuals who come in with experience in a topic. No, with expertise in a topic will also have strong opinions. This prior knowledge supposedly, is that right? Supposedly affects their ability to be impartial. Wow, this is a tough one. Okay, the logic. Wow. Okay, that's really advanced. Jeez, that's so advanced. In jury selection, lawyers are now beginning to favor individuals who are uninformed about the topic of the case. The logic, meaning the reason, is that individuals who come in with expertise in a topic will also have strong opinions. This prior knowledge supposedly, it's got to be supposedly, but I thought supposedly had two S's. I guess it only has one. This prior knowledge supposedly affects their ability to be impartial. People who are uninformed, by contrast, will apparently come in with more flexible viewpoints. So this is a super difficult question. So the good news is If the questions get difficult for you, that's actually a good sign, because it means by this point in the test, Duolingo thinks your score is quite high. So it's going to give you difficult questions. So yeah, this is not a problem, but again, a good sign that I'm going to get a high score.
Contrary to our expectation, the teams were quite evenly matched.
So we're quite evenly matched. Okay, contrary to our expectation, the teams were quite evenly matched.
Contrary to our expectation, the teams were quite evenly matched.
Cool. So what's a little weird about this one is usually you say contrary to our expectations, but he said contrary to our expectations. So I think that that's what Duolingo is trying to trick me with here. They want me to type expectations, but he actually only said expectation. Again, that's a little weird. So for these questions, for any question on the test, be aware that there may be little tricks like this, or traps, where Duolingo wants you to put something that is incorrect. So just be careful.
Contrary to our expectation, the teams were quite evenly matched.
Cool. All right, so done with that section. Now we're going to go into interactive reading and interactive listening. First up is an interactive reading question. So the first thing you should do is read the whole passage. I find with interactive reading, you can slow down a little bit. In the previous section, you have to move pretty fast on most of the questions. But in interactive reading, you have a bit more time, so you can sort of slow down, catch your breath, recover a little bit from the previous section. But let's read through this whole thing. Even though there's a lot of blanks, you need to do that to get a feel of the context. So over the past technical development has blank way to a number of broad changes in communications and blank technology. These changes have fundamentally altered the blank. We connect with one another with the natural blank and blank information. One of the most profound changes has been the rise of mobile computing, which has transformed blank. We communicate, access information, and consume media. Social media has arguably blank the single most significant factor in encouraging and enabling these blank. Cool. So generally the passage is about technology, information technology, stuff like the internet. So now I'll just go blank by blank. Number one, over the past 2 decades, the internet has been around for about 2 years, so that's a context clue. It's been around for about 2 decades, about 20 years, so that's a context clue that I can use to help me with that one. Technological development has given way to a number of broad changes, has given way to a number of broad changes in communications and information technology. These changes have fundamentally altered the way we connect with one another, with the natural these changes have fundamentally altered the way we connect with one another, with the natural world, and with information. So it's a list of the ways that we connect with the world around us. One of the most profound changes has been the rise of mobile computing, which has transformed how we communicate, access information, and consume media. Social media has arguably been the single most significant factor in encouraging and enabling these changes. Cool. All right, let me proofread. Over the past 2 decades, technological development has given way to a number of broad changes in communications and information technology. These changes have fundamentally altered the way we connect with one another, with the natural world, and with information. One of the most profound changes has been the rise of mobile computing, which has transformed how we communicate, access information, and consume media. Social media has arguably been the single most significant factor in encouraging and enabling these changes. Cool. All right, looks like I was correct in all of those. So now we need to pick the missing sentence. So as we increasingly turn to our mobile devices for information and communication, it becomes vital to understand how these technologies impact our relationship with the natural world. Cool. So let's see. We can just go sentence by sentence. So what would work the best here? This is also nice. You can hover over the passage and they'll put it here in between to make it easier to read in context. So social media has arguably been the single most significant factor in encouraging and enabling these trends. There's an array of wireless devices besides cell phones to connect with others, digital cameras, fax machines, pagers, and wireless email. As we increasingly turn to our mobile devices for information and communication, it becomes vital to understand how these technologies impact our relationship with the natural world. So that one doesn't quite fit, and I can tell you, because we're running short on time, that if we do the same exercise with each of these and find the sentence that connects this paragraph with the new idea, it's going to be this one here. So social media users can use these networks to share new views, thoughts, pictures, videos, music, or other types of information with their friends. And then as we increasingly turn to mobile devices for information and communication, so that directly links to how we're using social media to share more information with our friends. And then it builds on that point to say it's important that we think about how that's going to change our relationship with the natural world, with nature. Cool. All right. What time period is the article focused on? The past 2 decades. With these, you should try to answer the question as precisely as possible. If you highlight too much, you'll lose points. If you highlight too little, you'll also lose points. So really the best thing is to try to be as precise as possible. What is the most important factor in encouraging and enabling changes in communication? Social media. It says here, so social media has arguably been the single most significant factor in encouraging and enabling these changes. So social media. What is the most important factor in encouraging and enabling changes in communication? What is the most important factor in encouraging and enabling changes in communication? I think it's this. I feel like there was a mistake in the test or something. Or maybe I didn't click next. I think it's social media again. Okay. Select the idea that is expressed in the passage. Digital communication technologies. Yeah, cool. So all the other ones like printing press, public education, none of these words appeared in the text. There was no mention of a study and the digital communication technologies. This one's close, but this one is correct. All right, we're short on time, so I'm going to move fast. Select the best title for the passage, the growth of mobile computing, children with, Cool, yeah, this one. Okay, interactive listening. These questions are pretty tough, so I'm going to focus up. All right, you will participate in a conversation about the scenario below. You are an urban studies student. So I'm going to note urban studies is what I study, who is nearing the end of their undergraduate studies. You are trying to decide if you should apply for a job or if you should apply for a doctoral program. You ask your professor for their opinion. So for these, you should note who you are. So I'm a student. I study urban studies. I'm about to graduate, and I'm talking to my professor about whether I should apply for a job or a doctoral program. So you really need to have a detailed understanding of the scenario. This is called the scenario because these little details can determine the right answer from the wrong answers. All right, pick the best option to start. Professor, I hope you're doing well. I'd like to share my experience. Professor, what do you want to talk about? All right, this is the only one that really makes sense. Cool. All right, and with these, it says here, you can only listen to the audio once.
Hi, I'm doing well, thanks. What can I do for you?
All right, working on some research. No, I wanted to get your opinion on something. I'm nearing the end of my undergraduate studies and trying to decide if I should apply for a job or apply for a doctoral program. That is probably the right answer, but let's just skim through the others to make sure. Cool. Undergraduate degree in accounting. No. You do urban studies. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. No, that's not correct. This one could, this one could be, but you start by saying, I'm not sure, but he didn't ask you for a specific thing. He asked you how he can help you. So this would be the most appropriate response.
That's a tough decision. Have you been looking at jobs in the field that you're interested in?
All right, have I been looking at jobs? Yeah, I've been looking for jobs, but most of the jobs require at least a few years of experience. So you can see here, all the other ones don't really make sense. I see wouldn't make sense. I'm not really sure, doesn't answer the question. He's asking about jobs, not programs, so that doesn't make sense. And then he didn't ask you about classmates. He's asking you about jobs. So this is the only response that makes sense.
That's true. A doctoral program would give you the opportunity to gain more knowledge and research experience in your field so that you can eventually get a job that you want.
Yeah. All right, so this one maybe. No, this one isn't correct. He hasn't told you to do anything. Well, in particular, I don't know how to apply to a doctoral program. Yeah, doesn't really make sense. No, I've taken some advance under. All right. This one I think is correct. Let's see. Cool, that was correct.
It definitely takes a lot of time and commitment, but it can be very rewarding. If you're not sure if an advanced degree is for you, why don't you try working in your field for a few years and then decide whether or not to pursue a doctorate later on?
Cool. That's a good idea. Thank you, Professor. Cool, that's the only one that makes sense. He didn't tell you to do more research. He didn't tell you to make a change. You didn't agree to meet tomorrow. He didn't clarify something that you were confused about. So that's why, yes, that makes sense now isn't correct. So that's why this one, that's a good idea. Thank you, Professor, is the most appropriate. All right, got all those correct. Now we need to write the summary. Before you go to the summary, always scroll to the top and read through the conversation so that you have all the information fresh in your mind. So, okay, what am I going to talk about in my summary? All right, I'm ready. I'm an urban studies student who is graduating soon. I'm not sure if I should apply to graduate schools or start working. So I went to my professor for advice. He recommended that I told him that I wasn't sure if I wanted to be in school for many more years in order to get an advanced degree. He recommended that I apply for jobs and work in the industry for a few years. Then I could decide if I wanted to pursue a graduate degree. All right, kind of a long response. Ideally, I would have saved time to proofread, but it's going to get a good score. Cool. All right, another interactive listening. So I've been studying public policy this time, and I'm thinking about transferring to another institution that has a stronger program. I decided to talk to my close friend, so I'm talking to a friend who's knowledgeable about public policy programs. So I want their advice about how to approach the transfer process. All right.
So, you've been thinking about transferring for a different public policy program, huh? What's making you consider that?
Cool. Yeah. This one, all the other ones don't answer her question, which is what's making me consider transferring? All the other ones they're answering a different question. Only this one answers the thing that I was asked.
I get that. My sibling transferred to another university and had a positive experience. Have you researched the program and the opportunities it offers?
Yeah, same thing. This is the only option that answers the question I was asked, which is, have you looked into the other programs? And yeah, I say I've looked into scholarships and the curriculum, and the program looks strong and has better connections with policy organizations.
That's a great start. Don't forget to also consider other aspects like housing arrangements or how your credits will transfer.
This one, a little difficult because this response kind of changes the topic. So I'm saying like, yeah, the housing and credit transfer aspects have been worrying me. And then I changed the topic asking about whether she thinks it's worth leaving my current friends and starting over. So a little tricky, but this is the correct one.
Look, I know it's tough to leave what you've built here, but ultimately, your education and future goals should come first. Just remember, we'll keep in touch no matter where you are.
Cool. All right, you got some good friends. They're going to keep in touch even if you transfer. Yeah, thanks. That means a lot. What else should I consider before making a decision? Yeah.
Maybe try reaching out to current students who study public policy at that university. They might be able to offer you their perspectives and additional information.
Cool. That's a great idea. All right, there's some options here which are partially correct and that Duolingo is trying to trick you with. This is super common for interactive listening. So this is a really good example. So that sounds like a good plan. That answers the question you were asked, but then the rest of that reply is irrelevant. So you're saying that sounds like a good plan. All right, let's study separately for now, and then we can meet up for our review sessions, but you're not studying for a test or anything, so that's irrelevant. I appreciate the options. Maybe, maybe she gave you some options, but then you say, I suppose it'll be better to focus on completing the prerequisites first. That doesn't relate to what you were just talking about, so that's wrong. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Another possible answer to her question. And then let's try it out and see if it helps us to achieve some balance with our schedules. But you weren't talking about schedules or anything like that. And then finally, that's a great idea, professor. That's definitely wrong because remember, you're talking to a classmate, not a professor. So those little details really help you to know the right answer from the wrong answers. So by process of elimination, it leaves this one. That's a great idea. Thanks for the advice and reassurance. I'll look more into it and weigh my options. All right, make sure you save time to recap and reread the conversation before you go to the summary. In this conversation, I talked with a classmate about what to consider when transferring schools. I study public policy and I want to transfer to a different school with a better program. My classmate encouraged me to learn more about their program and to talk to students in the program so that I can make sure I'm making the right decision. She also reassured me that my friends at my current university would keep in touch, even if I transferred. Cool. All right. Always this warning about staying focused on the screen. It's a very good warning because if you look away from the screen, which happens for speaking questions which are about to come, you won't have your results certified. Okay, cool. So this one, I have one write about the photo, one interactive writing. Let's do it. In this photo, I see a solitary sheep or maybe a ram standing between rows of trees. Perhaps the trees are apple trees and this is an orchard. In the background, we can see a silo and a long barn. This looks, the grass and the foliage behind the sheep are verdant. This looks like a lush place. So you can see in my response, I pack it full of advanced vocabulary, go out of my way to use a lot of advanced vocabulary. That's how you can get a very high score on the test. And if I'm trying to get 160, I really need to do that. All right, let's prepare for this one. Films can tell us a lot about the country where they were made. What have you learned about another country from watching its movies? Okay, so I've watched a lot of French films. So I'm going to talk about that. All right, so I have watched many French films, and they have taught me a lot about French culture. First, they taught me that French culture values food very much. I remember noticing how in so many of the films set in France that I watched, there were many scenes of people sitting around a table, enjoying a meal and drinking wine. Time spent dining like this is a cornerstone of French culture. Cornerstone of French culture. I later learned from my professor. Second, I learned that France is an unequal society. There are many wealthy people who live in the large cities like France. However, if you leave the middle of these large cities and go to the suburbs or rural areas, you can encounter many people living in poverty. In these areas, there are not many jobs. The schools are not good, and there is a lot of crime. This was surprising because the portrayal of France in American movies is always of the Eiffel Tower and the beautiful and the Mediterranean terrain. I don't know how to spell that word, so I'm going to leave it out. And cities like Nice or Cannes by the sea. By watching films made by French people, I was able to learn about more aspects about the ways that different kinds of French people live. In conclusion, French films helped me to understand French culture and society at a deeper level. I'll leave it at that. You should always save time to proofread your response. So I'm going to do that now. I have watched many French films, and they have taught me a lot about French culture. First, they taught me that French culture values food very much. I remember noticing how in so many of the films set in France that I watched, there are many scenes of people sitting around a table enjoying a meal and drinking wine. Time spent dining like this is a cornerstone of French culture I later learned from my professor. Second, I learned that France is an unequal society. There are many wealthy people who live in the large cities like Paris. However, if you leave the middle of these large cities and go to the suburbs or rural areas, you can encounter many people living in poverty. In these areas, there are not many jobs, the schools are not good, and there is a lot of crime. This was surprising because the portrayal of France in American movies is always of the Eiffel Tower in cities like Nice or Cannes by the sea, by watching films made by French people. Oh, there's a typo, but I ran out of time. Okay, next response. How has watching a country's films given you insight into its scenery or geography? Explain how this has influenced your understanding of the country. By watching French films, I learned that France has a tremendous diversity in scenery. In the south, in the southeast, let's say in the east and the southeast of the country, you have the Alps. These are massive snow-capped mountains where people from around the world travel to in order to ski. Just a few hours drive from there, you have the Côte d'Azur, which is some of the most beautiful places by the sea in the entire world. In that region, there is a strong culture, let's say culinary culture, always trying to use more advanced vocabulary where I can. There's a strong culinary culture around seafood. If you venture to the west of France, you enter an agricultural bread basket. This means a place where a lot of crops are grown. Most famously is the Bordeaux region, where the best wines in the world are made. Cool. I'm going to leave it at that and proofread. By watching French films, I learned that France has a tremendous diversity in scenery. In the east and southeast of the country, you have the Alps. These are massive snow-capped mountains where people from around the world travel to in order to ski. Just a few hours drive from there, you have the Côte d'Azur, which is some of the most beautiful places by the sea in the entire world, which has some of the most beautiful places by the sea in the entire world. In that region, there is a strong culinary culture around seafood. If you venture to the west of France, you have an agricultural breadbasket. Most famously is the Bordeaux region, where the best wines in the world are made. Cool. Now for the speaking questions, I believe. Yep, here we go. 3 speaking questions, and then we'll be done, I think.
Talk about what student life is like in your country.
Okay, talk about what student life is like in my country. Let's replay it.
Talk about what student life is like in your country. Talk about what student life is like in your country.
Okay, so I'm American, so thankfully this is pretty easy to talk about. Student life in my country, the United States, is one of extremes. We have an expression that is work hard, play hard. I think that this expression captures the culture at American colleges and universities. It certainly accurately describes my college experience and the experience shared by my classmates in college. What this expression, work hard, play hard, means is that you really live at the extremes. So during the week, I think that many students study very hard. They are good students. They do their homework. They prepare for their tests. They take their studies very seriously. But then on the weekend, they close all the books and they party really hard. So there's a lot of alcohol, unfortunately, involved to an extent that I think is unhealthy. But the idea is that you can achieve a certain balance by working very hard during the week and then playing very hard on the weekend. So even compared to similar countries in Europe, for example, I think that the American college lifestyle is considered quite extreme. Okay, I'm going to speak about this photo. Let's see. Cool. This one is relatively easy to describe, actually. All right, I'm ready. This image depicts what appears to be a museum. I believe it's a museum because covering the floor are artifacts that people can walk through and browse. In particular, it looks like this is a gallery with busts. So busts are statues that are just from the chest up. Busts were originally a way to capture what somebody looked like before we had photographs. So it looks like these are busts, presumably from historic figures that are scattered about. Some are in glass cases, some are out in the open. This looks like quite a opulent museum because it has a high ceiling with these ornate lamps dangling. There's a glass roof, which is letting in a lot of natural light. And the sides of this gallery or hall have large arches and columns and a mezzanine up above where perhaps people can walk. And it's all made out of a nice tan stone. The floor also has a somewhat intricate mosaic tile pattern. All right, and then read and speak. So I need to talk about this topic, discuss the impact that museums can have on tourism. What makes museums appealing to tourists? What benefits do they bring to a city or a region? Okay. I think that museums can have a massive impact on tourism. I think a clear example of this is Paris. Paris welcomes millions and millions of tourists every year. And there are many attractions in Paris, like the Eiffel Tower or food, but I think that the biggest draw in Paris are all of the incredible museums. They have the Louvre with the Mona Lisa, they have the Musée d'Orsay, and countless other museums that attract all kinds of people who are interested in different things. I think that museums are such a great thing to attract tourists because they allow people to see some of the most beautiful, inspiring objects that humans have created, and it's a way to share these objects with the entire world. I think that museums are also great for tourism because they encourage people to be respectful and thoughtful, as opposed to things like amusement parks or sporting events or concerts, which are a lot of fun and can attract many people, but that also have some downsides like people drinking too much and becoming disorderly. All right, and finally we have the writing and speaking sample. All right, I need to write about this topic for 5 minutes. Describe the last time you were curious about something and did your own research. What did you discover? Why was this experience important or interesting to you? Okay, on the test, some questions will be easier than others for various reasons. This one is going to be easy for me because I actually have been doing research in a topic the last couple of days, so I can easily write about that. So here we go. The last time I was curious about a topic and did my own research was yesterday, actually. I was curious about how to structure my athletic training. I have been doing CrossFit for about 2 years, and I have noticed that I have been getting more tired after workouts. I'm no longer able to work out as often or intensely as I used to. This worried me, so I decided to do some research into it. It turns out that this is perfectly natural. As we get fitter, our ability to work out for longer intervals and at higher intensities increases, which means we can put more stress on our bodies. However, our recovery speeds do not increase as much as our fitness. This means as we get fitter, we can't work out as much as we used to. I then researched how to adjust my training plan to better suit me at my current fitness levels. I now only do 3 or 4 intense sessions per week. On the other days of the week, I still will work out, but at a lower intensity level. These days, I have been focusing on developing my upper body strength with some less intense weightlifting. On these days, I also stretch to help my muscles recover. This research, although this research is new, although these lessons are new to me, I expect them to leave me feeling better, and ultimately to become, also lead me to become more fit. All right, let me proofread. The last time I was curious about a topic and did my own research was yesterday, actually. I was curious about how to structure my athletic training. I have been doing CrossFit for about 2 years, and I have noticed that I have been getting more tired after workouts. I'm no longer able to work out as often or intensely as I used to. This worried me, so I decided to do some research into it. It turns out that this is perfectly natural. As we get fitter, our ability to work out for longer intervals and at higher intensities increases, which means we can put more stress on our bodies. However, our recovery speeds do not increase as much as our fitness. This means that as we get fitter, we can't work out as much as we used to. I then researched how to adjust my training plan to better suit me at my current fitness levels, and now only do 3 or 4 intense sessions per week. On the other days of the week, I still will work out, but at a lower intensity level. These days, I've been focusing on developing my upper body strength with some and less intense weightlifting. On these days, I also stretch to help my muscles recover. Although these lessons are new to me, I expect them to leave me feeling better and ultimately also lead me to become more fit. Great. This is a super high scoring response. And now for the speaking sample, another reminder to stay focused on the camera. All right, prepare to speak about the topic below. Are you more productive when you are doing a few things at the same time, or are you more productive when you have only a single thing to focus on? What do you think helps you to be more productive? Cool. This is another easy question for me to answer because this is something that has been on my mind a lot, and I know the answer for me, so I'm going to start. I am absolutely more productive when I only have a single thing to focus on. I used to have jobs that required me to juggle several things at one time. So I would have emails, and I would have Slack messages, and I would have meetings, and I would have coworkers next to me asking me questions, and I would have people from other parts of the office coming to ask me questions. So I had a ton of interruptions. And what I found was that I never spent more than a few minutes on one task. So I made a lot of mistakes. I was never able to take on a big project and complete it in any timely manner. I was very busy, but I felt like I actually accomplished very little. It was a real paradox of feeling very busy, but also feeling not very productive. These days, my job has changed. I have fewer things to focus on. It's more important for me to go deep into what I am doing, and I've found that my productivity has increased tremendously. So within a week, I'm able to spend an entire day focused on one thing, and then the next day I can spend focus on a different thing. And so by having only one thing to focus on at a time, I'm able to do so much more over the span of a week and a month. What helps me to be more productive is, simply put, fewer distractions. So I think what happens for all of us, but especially for me, is that when I have too many things to think about, I end up what's called context switching. So the idea is that in order to really think deeply about a topic, you have to think about it for at least 30 minutes. So you have to spend at least 30 minutes in a specific context before you can really think at a deep level and have new ideas and have good solutions to the problems that you face. However, if you're switching context all the time between email and meetings and this conversation and that conversation, then your brain can never settle into one context, and you're never able to do very good work. So I try to arrange my schedule to put all of the small things, so email and meetings, all together in the morning or the afternoon, and then have as much uninterrupted time to do what is called deep work on a particular problem or project. No, I do not want to do the experimental questions. Okay, let's see my score. Hey, I did it. Okay, 150 to 160. This is the top score, I believe, that you can get on the practice test. So there you go. All right, I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for what I should do in future videos, just put those into a comment, and please be sure to like and subscribe. All right, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.